Hi guys. Okay, so today it's not going to be an anomalies video, but it is going to be part 3 to my series that I've been working on about grays and disclosure and non-disclosure. This particular one, it's important to me, this one. It is a bit on the darker side, but I believe that it is at the heart of the reason why we do not have disclosure and probably never will. I don't want to say never, there's always a possibility. There are very, very kind of disturbing reasons as to why certain things are being hidden. And I don't think it's in our best interest. And I don't want to spread fear either, but I do think it's important that people are aware. And I really wanted to make this video because of all of the hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of missing children, women, and men out there that have disappeared without a trace, without no one knows what happened to them. They're just gone. And those people do not have a voice. They have no one really fighting for them, except for maybe some few underground fighters trying to expose everything. So the more people that we have trying to expose these underground facilities, which is mainly what I'm going to be talking about today, the greater the chance that we'll be able to expose these horrific experiments, these just all of these things that are going on in these underground bases. And so what I've done is I've just taken kind of a mishmash of different clips from people who have had experiences with these underground bases. There are also bases on Mars. This is connected to Mars as well. And so I just want to say, say for the record, that these clips are used under the principles of fair use for education and to present a point. But some of the people's interviews that I have used, I don't necessarily agree with all the philosophies that they preach in general. So I'm sure some of you guys may come on and go, I can't believe you guys used this clip from this guy and da 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 da. But the reason why I picked the people that I did and the interviews that I did is because they are among the very few people who have ever seen these places with their own eyes, who are coming forward to speak about it. And one of these men have actually lost their lives as a result. So even though I may not agree with their political views or their, spiritual or philosophical views, I do believe that the events of their life are true and that they actually have experienced these things, regardless of their interpretation of it. So I don't want to scare anyone. I don't want to present an ominous image, and maybe I'll do another part and keep getting myself into this. Do another part on the kind of the positive side, that deep down we really have nothing to be afraid of and everything is going to be okay. But we do need to be aware of what is going on, and this stuff has to stop. So I just wanted to share my beliefs with you guys, and I'm sure if you're one of my subscribers, you've probably seen half these videos anyways of the people I'm using. So but for those of you who haven't, or those of you who maybe haven't thought of it in this light, this video is just to present you something to think about. Do your own investigation, do your own work. But yeah, just wanted to share this with you guys, and I really hope that you enjoy it. Hit like if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more videos, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will get all the links to all of the different interviews that I've used in the description of this video. And hopefully it won't get deleted. I have used the odd clip that maybe I might not have been allowed to, but it really, again, every single clip is to present a point, so hopefully that will be understood. Thanks, guys.
Now, what can we do about it? Right now, if we do nothing, we can do nothing about it, and it'll continue to go on. Basically, we'll be led in the dark, and you'll keep seeing more and more people disappear. Right now, there's 100,000 children totally unaccountable through FBI archives, cannot be traced anywhere. They haven't been murdered. Nobody's ever seen them. I think they're hauled underneath in some of these bases, and they are summarily done away with, and they are literally eaten. Now, that is a scary thing indeed. And I'm not asking you to believe me in toto. I am asking you to seriously do enough homework that you can go out through the public record, through the congressional records, find out who's voting for what, and go from there. Do your own program, do your own agenda, and do your own speaking out. And if enough of us do this, there is some saving grace.
Well, can you explain the nature of the Nazi problem and its threat to the US intelligence complex?
Yeah, that I can actually say a little bit more about and how it relates to the structure of the Space Force as it stands, because there clearly is a purveyance of a philosophy which you can only identify as Nazi eugenic. I mean, it really is just right out of their textbook, that kind of philosophy, in which is purveyed by a number of bureaucrats and a number of officers in the Space Force. So there's clearly this very, very heavy philosophical, psychological influence from Nazi eugenics thinking, and people who have adopted that as thinking this is the way in which we should be moving forward. But there is also clearly a counter voice to that, and there are people who've clearly chosen to stand on an opposite aisle of that, and it's, again, not the kind of thing that we were supposed to be privy to, but if you ever did happen to overhear, senior officers arguing about something, that would be the kind of thing you'd hear them arguing about, are these kind of, upper hierarchical philosophical questions about, how we're treating the clones, what we're using the clones for, and whether that's ethical or not, and what kinds of gene picking we're using for them, and whether that's represents something or just Nazi and racist, because there's certainly the philosophy that by mixing in many of the other genetic distinctions, you're going to get a better sort of pure strain approach by mixing all the best qualities of something and get qualities to come out of that, instead of picking for recessive qualities and then trying to cull out things so that you get the mutants that you want you keep, and the mutants that you don't want you just you cull out. And there's definitely those arguments why anybody would believe that so many of these Nazi scientists would come over to us and all of a sudden stop being Nazi eugenicists. I don't see how, that logical connection fits, because it makes way more sense that people who were trained and indoctrinated and led to believe that this is really the superior way to move into the future would take that philosophy with them and would want to transfer it to the new place that they would go. So I think the historical data shows that we had that problem when they came here, and we started to see our military intelligence space program infiltrated by a Nazi philosophy, which started to create more and more of a lean towards these kind of really extreme, unethical scientific experimentation, use of clone technology in ways which, if you were to have in the public discourse, the public would clearly not agree with. If you were to have a real democratic discussion where you said, hey, everybody, let's have a discussion about this, you would not have a situation where the people would say, yeah, that's a great idea. So there's a division there. And I think that division is creating its own mess and its own problem and its own sort of civil war atmosphere. So I think one of the things that I'm more concerned about is that there is this cohesive system of starships and people who outfit these starships, but there is this deep philosophical divide between many of the people who are running, like the Mars Colony Corporation and conducting the leadership in the chain of commands in both the MDF and the EDF, and the bureaucratic associations that come from the top of that make me really concerned that it's not going to stay cohesive, and that the coming to a decision point where one side either says, look, we're tired of you doing it this way, and we really don't want it to be like this for the next 100 years. So some form of coup d'etat starts to become a possibility, or some form of, really high-tech civil war activity between factions who both have spaceships and who both have super soldiers and who both have really, really access to high-tech extraterrestrial weaponry, which could really be bad for everybody else, because that's the kind of war in which lots of things get blown up and destroyed all at once, and lots of people die in mass numbers all at once because the kind of power of the weaponry you're talking about.
briefing is that they're incurably insane and that they're doing high-risk drug treatments on the insane. And it's actually a top-secret psychiatry facility. That's what they're first told when they go in there. So,
and then they never come out?
These people?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them don't come out.
66 Secret Service agents, Green Berets, Black Berets, crack troops lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious. It's been going on since that time. Since late August of 1979, our military, the Russian military, basically the militaries of the world, have been in constant conflict with the outer space alien.
I was off the air, and he called to tell me this experience where these 5 or 6 families had been going out, not mountain climbing, but backpacking in Colorado on their vacation together. And he said they were up on a mountain one morning. They come up over a mountain one morning and looked down in the valley, and we're talking about 5 or 6 Christian families here, men and women and children. And he says, and we all saw that there was a ritual, some sort of a ritual going on in the valley that we had come up on that we were not expecting. And there was a large, round area out in the valley. We were up on the mountaintop looking down of this large, round area in the valley had been cleared away, and there was a round circle of people wearing robes, and they were swaying back and forth, holding hands and chanting. And there was obviously a priest or someone in the middle with a robe. And he said, we were pretty far away, but we weren't that far. We could see what was going on. And so he said, we told the children to be quiet, and no one said anything because we realized we were interrupting some sort of a religious ritual or whatever. And he said, while we were standing there, in the circle appeared another entity out of nowhere, and it was much, much larger in size than everyone else that was there. And he said, the moment it appeared in that circle from out of nowhere, it pointed up at us, and the ritual stopped, the singing stopped, everyone pointed up, and we knew that we'd been seen. And he said, so we figured we were far enough away up on the mountain, and they were out in the valley, that, you know, they would never catch up with us. He said, we turned to run, and that entity that was in the circle was there within a few seconds. It confronted us. It came all the way across the valley and up the side of the mountain. It was not human. And he says, there were 6 families here. We're talking about 6 Christian families with women and children. And he said, we all stood there and watched this thing and saw this thing. He said it was well over 7 foot tall. It was extremely muscular, almost an obscenity. It was extremely muscular in body form. He said, but it was designed like a male human. But it was totally filled with scales, and the head, this thing's over 7 foot tall, the head was the head of a reptile. And he said, it stared at us, and we could tell this thing was an extremely intelligent. It was not a reptile in the normal sense. And he said, this thing stood there staring at all of us. And he said, I was amazed. Even the children didn't cry. No one could do anything. They were so frightened. He says, and it finally decided that we were not a threat to it, so it turned like it was going to leave, and then it stopped and turned back around and looked at the men, and it never said a thing. He said, but we could tell what it was thinking, that it was very unhappy that we had interrupted its ritual, and it was trying to decide what it was going to do about us. And he said, and it finally turned, and in just a flip of an eye, he said, just a twinkling of an eye, it was gone. Zing, it's gone. So my point being is that I think that we had better start seriously looking at the possibility that this Earth is being inhabited by other life forms than us. And we know that there's all kinds of life forms out there which are lesser evolved than us, but I am suggesting that maybe we're not the highest evolved entities on this Earth, and there may be others here with us. And I don't know exactly where they would have come from. I don't know what their agenda is, but I am very highly suspect that there is the possibility there may be someone here. And I think the military of all the nations, especially the modern-day nations, know that. I know that our military is concerned about it. I know that there are other agencies of military throughout the government, throughout the world. So I know that there's some very high technical organizations that are aware. And I'm just very concerned about what that bodes for the future for our country and for our world.
You're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military. I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting...
Anyhow, what transpired in April 1954? The stories I've heard from people I trust in that the whole thing went 3 days. There was a lot of exchange, and your country hasn't been the same since. You talk about black government, shadow government. Ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea how damn black it is. The government you think you've got is not the government you've got.
Okay. Back in 1954, I'll give you a quick overview. There was the created 1954 treaty where Eisenhower signed a pact with the known alien species of the time. There were 3 at the time. And said that we're going to deal in high technology, but you can take a few head of cattle and a few human beings and you can experiment on them. It's unthinkable. It's stuff straight out of the Nazi death camps, and I'm kidding you not, it's plain BS, and it's got to stop. Now, the created 1954 treaty would have been violated. After the great firefight, the alien-human war, I am the only living survivor talking about it worldwide at all. Only one.
They're all over the damn place. They're in our midst, and they are family. We're related to them because they were the ones that had a hand in establishing us as a hybrid race 100,000 years ago. And that hybridization is still underway, it's still happening, even as we sit here and speak.
All this alien thing is fine, except for one thing. The alien takeover is a serious threat. Kept totally out of the public view, off the surface, I'm sure the underground bases, without question, are being used as a place to house alien takeover. Alien takeover means the implementation of a one-world government.
in my work, I came across people who started remembering things, where they were having bleed-throughs and fragment memories of things that just didn't make sense in their life. They couldn't figure out how, why are they having memories of, being in underground bases or being sent as a courier or killing people out in Central America, drug lords, or these strange, military-type memories. Or sometimes it includes aliens or aliens working with humans. So anyway,
so Eve, isn't a question, please, isn't it true that a lot of people are having these things as dreams and they think that these are all dreams?
Absolutely, and that's how many memories do surface, and then you'll have these memories come back, and then to make sense of them, like how they happened, because nowadays the technology is such that they have time travel and time regression technology so that they can do things to you and take you in and out of time, so that when you remember things, it's just this time looped memory, but you can't make sense of it because maybe there was no missing time. It's just you remember these things, and this has happened in cases that I've interviewed, like Michael Relf with the Mars records, and another man named Zed, and others who didn't want to go public, who were discovered themselves to be in specific defense projects through being recruited in some kind of military program, and then they were recruited from there secretly under my control into another secret project where, like, let's say there was the Mars Defense Force or some kind of program where they're sent to like a Mars colony to do a 20-year stint, and in that stint they may have operations that go above and beyond simple military capabilities that you would think would be normal for, quote, military. It would be like tactical remote viewers and assassins by psychic means and other things that involved alien technology. So it just goes up a few quantum notches because of the technology.
Right. This is the second in a 5-part series about the explosive testimony of Captain K, who claims he was trained as a child super soldier to serve as a member of an elite Marine Corps unit that provides personnel for secret military bases on the Moon, Mars, and other parts of the solar system. Documentary evidence is being sought to substantiate his experiences, and for now we offer the public his first-hand testimony as evidence of a breakaway human civilization operating in outer space. In part 2 of this series, we learn about Captain K's tour of duty on Mars, where he was recruited after the completion of his super soldier training in 1987. Captain K explained the short time he spent at the Lunar Operations Command, where he was given a contract describing the terms of a 20-year tour of duty. After signing, he boarded a V-shaped shuttlecraft that was 150 foot long, 450 feet wide, and several floors. It could move over 1,000 troops at a time. He was transported to the location where his first assignment would begin. Captain K was assigned to the Mars Defense Force, which maintained a military base on Mars. He served at the Mars Defense Force base for just over 17 years. The main purpose was to protect the Mars Colony Corporation, which had 5 settlements on Mars from indigenous Martians. The first and main settlement is called Ares Prime, which is located inside a crater. Ares Prime served as the headquarters for the Mars Colony Corporation. Captain K said that the air was breathable on the surface and the temperature could be warm at times, but with a very cold breeze. Captain K claims that there are 2 indigenous species on Mars, both of which are highly intelligent. One of these was a reptilian species that was very aggressive in defending its territory. The other was an insectoid species that was equally capable of protecting its territory. He said that the indigenous Martians are not particularly interested in expanding their territory, only maintaining it. Captain K said that as long as the Mars Defense Force and Mars Colony Corporation didn't encroach on the territory of the indigenous Martians, there would be stable relations. While serving in the infantry with the Mars Defense Force, he reached the rank of Sergeant Major. After serving 17 years, his tour of duty changed dramatically when virtually all combat personnel from the Mars Defense Force were asked to retrieve an extraterrestrial artifact from a cave sacred to the indigenous reptilians. Captain K described how over 1,000 men and women were killed in a subsequent battle, and only 28 of his colleagues, including himself, survived. It was after the calamitous events of this battle that Captain K's division of the Mars Defense Force was dissolved. He was then given the opportunity to become a pilot and an officer with a secret space fleet belonging to the Earth Defense Force.
He then pulls out a stack of paperwork and says, here's your contract. I'm supposed to go over this with you and, talk about any questions you have and get you to initial and sign in the right places, and then, we can move along. And so there was some time of discussion of him saying, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're signing for a 20-year tour service, but, again, don't worry. It's going to be all right. You'll be done. We'll wipe all those ugly memories out of your head that you're not going to want to remember anyway, and then we'll interject you back right after we took you and age reverse you, and you'll just get to live your whole life all over again, and it'll be fine. You won't lose any time. You won't lose any years. And in fact, you'll come back to a nice cushy job and we'll take care of you and you'll be fine. A lot of reassurances that it's no big deal, and everyone does this every day, and it's just the way we do things now, and a certain amount of explaining what's in the paperwork and what's in the contract, and just making sure you initial and sign in all the right places. Look, I can't tell you what you're doing next because I'm not cleared for that. He said, so all I know is that when you sign these papers, it will set in other actions into motion so that when you board the shuttle that leaves, another set of papers will be issued to you that will be opened upon your arrival. And those will be your new orders and your new assignment and your new everything that you need to know. He says, so at that point, we arrive on Ares Prime, and at that point, we all get informed that we are now members of the Mars Defense Force, the MDF, and that the MDF is a specific military organization, private contracted military organization, which is specifically contracted to serve under the MCC to protect and defend the Mars Colony Corporations and its interests. We got informed you are now a member of the Mars Defense Force. You will be assigned a chit, which, a little card, a little paperwork that is going to tell, which shuttle you're going to get on. And then you're going to get on that shuttle, and that shuttle is going to take you to a station. And that station is where you are going to be probably for, the next 20 years. And when you get to that station, then, you will get informed exactly what you're doing and exactly who you're working with, and you will receive all necessary training, equipment, et cetera, when you get there. Yes, definitely. At that point, I can go in a little more about what I understand to be the Martian history as it was told to me by, well, okay, I'll have to jump a bit ahead, I guess, but otherwise it could just be this very long story. So I'll just jump ahead to this really interesting part. Some years later, into my second decade of my service, by the time I had gone from, being a plebe in a fire team to the squad leader of Delta Squad, and we were captured intentionally by the reptoid species, who refer to themselves as the Galuka, which is much like we think of ourselves as Earthlings because we live on Earth. Galuk is the name that they call their planet, their home. So they really just call themselves, people of home, the children of Galuka. So when we got captured, which again was intentional, they had decided that they'd had enough of whatever game playing we'd been doing over these years, and that it was time to get closer to who this, hairless pink ape was that had, landed and was giving them trouble. Because again, they're not savages. They're very, very intelligent. In fact, they're the remnants of the older ancient Martian species, which was very advanced and had really advanced technology in space, very military technology, advanced enough that they nearly destroyed themselves with it, blew out their atmosphere. And then when the atmosphere got blown out, that essentially changed the pressure balance so that the pressure change made the oceans boil and made the high pressure, low pressure systems pulling so fast that you had 800-mile-an-hour winds, while all of that air and moisture pushing out away from the planet planet, and then gravity trying to pull it back in. And then after some number of whatever hours or days that it took for the atmosphere to restabilize and create another contained bubble around it. By that time, everything had swirled around, in 1,000-mile-an-hour winds for who knows how long, destroying every living thing on the surface. If they had not already taken serious effort to have very deep and strong, completely secured, hundreds of feet, underground bases of their and cities of their own, they would never have survived because everything on the surface was absolutely annihilated. From my understanding, what happened at that point is the surviving reptoids who were all underground at that point, there was a real moment of realization and awakening for them to go, wow, we just killed our planet. That was not very cool of us. And there was pretty much a division, and I won't say right down the middle, but there was kind of two sides that formed out of this, which were those who said, wow, we've done a bad thing, and we're going to have to pay our penance for this, and we're going to have to stay here and fix this. We're going to have to stay here and heal our planet and re-terraform our planet, and if it takes the next 10, 20, whatever thousand years, well, that's our responsibility and what we're going to have to be due in order to fix what we've done, which is to absolutely kill everything on the surface. And then the other faction was, oh, hell no, we're getting out of here. Everything's dead, it's gone, goodbye, it's over, we might as well leave. And they picked up and left. It is entirely possible and even likely that some of them came here, and that one of the many species of reptoids that came here some 10 or 20,000 years ago that may or may not be friendly or given us some trouble certainly could have been some of those Martian reptoids who left when that happened. I'm pretty sure it wasn't only them, and I'm pretty sure that there's more species that have done more harm to us here than they have. But if anything, they could be one of those kind of mid-level manager, Illuminati level type, species or something that could, be here on Earth. That could be an answer for that.
Okay, well, my first introduction to the Mars Defense Project was through Michael Relf and probably a couple other people in support groups and private conversations where they had memories of being on Mars. And these were, dream flashback types of things. And so actually Michael Relf talked about how he was recruited, and I believe it was Air Force or Navy. And I'm going through the interview because I've interviewed so many people, I forget like which branch. But yeah, he was recruited as he was in, I believe, the Air Force. And I may have to go back and give you a link on that.
Okay.
But and then they, in the middle of the night, they basically recruited him and said, would you like to be part of a secret project to help your country? And they called it the Mars Defense Force, which was basically on the Mars colony, which mostly is underground. There's actually quite a bit of people living there. He said it was I don't know if it was in the millions or thousands, but it's alien and humans who are on that colony. So reptilians and greys and human military. There's just so much to this. I've had another client recently who was also on Mars. He didn't call it the Mars Defense Project, but he was on the Mars colony also in another capacity, but had the same 20-year type of, what do they call it, tour of duty. Mm-hmm. And so what they'll do is they'll recruit, I think they recruited him, I think it was sometime in the 80s, and then he was there from like 86 to 2006 or 87 to 2007. So they do a 20-year stint. Okay. And then what was interesting in this recent case, he was only in the regular military for about a year. And then he found a way to get out of it. There was a lot of anomalies, and then there was something wrong with it, but he ended up in this 20-year project, only being in the military basically a year because they time-looped his experiences. And then he remembered what had happened in those time-looped experiences and had a lot of post-traumatic stress. And he was sent on different kinds of ops as well that included, world, things in Central America and regular assassination kinds of work.
Well, what is time-looped? What is that?
Well, in that case, they have technology that they call quantum access doorways. Andrew Basiago talks about this. He was in the Time Travel Pegasus project, and he's very vocal on his understanding of the different methods of time travel. People that I've talked to talk about interdimensional jump gates or stargates, which are, there's sometimes entire rooms or like trains that can go through time and go from one location to the next. And then there's different jump gates that will go, let's say, from Earth to the moon or Earth to Mars, and they call jump gates. And there's like entire rooms that could transport groups of people from one location to the next in time to like Earth to Mars, for example. And so there's wormholes where you have a singular portal where you can go through, or there's entire rooms, like they call jump gates, where they could do groups of people. So, yeah, I mean, one of the people that I interviewed, his name was codenamed Jared. He used to call that, when he was going through the vortex, they called it shooting the vort, and that was their terminology that they used when they would go through this wormhole to another time or dimensional reality. So they have these technologies that they use regularly.
Somewhere down the line, we've been lied to, we've been cheated. What we have to do is we have to literally ask for the truth. If we cannot ask for the truth, we must demand the truth. We must take it before courts of law and common law systems, and we must demand it.
Who are these vested interests, and what are they up to? Well, Senator, you were talking about a military junta. In my opinion, that is true, but I have broadened and deepened the definition to Cabal, and the Cabal comprises members of the Three Sisters: the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, and the Trilateral Commission, the International Banking Cartel, the Oil Cartel, members of various intelligence organizations, and select members of the military junta, who together have become a shadow government of not only the United States, but of much of the Western world. The aim of the game is a world government comprising members of the Cabal who are elected by no one and accountable to no one. And according to Mr. Rockefeller, the plan is well advanced.